All right, welcome everyone to our webinar on the nodal axis transiting through Virgo Pisces. You can see the dates on your screen, November 11th, 2015 through May 9th of 2017. Before we get started, first of all, some of our housekeeping slides. You might want to mute yourself, Leroy, with background noise. Here at EAN, you can learn with us in 3 different ways. You can listen to our free weekly audio podcasts that we publish every Wednesday or Thursday. You can subscribe to our Astro Library. There are 3 different sections, and of course our multimedia course. Here's another page on our Astro Library. It contains over a dozen years worth of materials by myself, Kim Marie, and various other evolutionary astrologers. You can see the 3 different sections up there. You can subscribe for 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, or you can do a monthly recurring that you can cancel at any time. Here are the 3 segments to our multimedia course that you can see on your screen. And in addition to that, segments 1 and 2 are now completely available online as streaming videos from any internet-friendly device, and they include all of the support materials as well. In addition, we offer free monthly classes to segments 1 and 2 as well. And so again, tonight we're going to be looking at that nodal axis getting ready to shift from Libra Aries to Virgo Pisces. Before we get started into some of those specifics, first of all, let's look at a little bit of astronomy to the nodal axis. The North Node and South Node are not planets or objects. They are points in space where the moon's path intersects with the plane of the ecliptic. Now, the ecliptic looks like it is the sun's apparent path moving around the Earth. In reality, the ecliptic is the Earth actually moving around the sun. But from our geocentric or Earth-centric viewpoint, it appears as though everything else moves around us. The North Node or ascending node is where the moon's path crosses above the ecliptic. And the North Node or descending node is where the moon's path crosses below the ecliptic. And here is a visual for you. Right here is the ecliptic. As you can see, it appears as though the sun is traveling in this circle. The dotted line represents the moon's path as it travels around Earth, which it actually does. Once a month, the moon crosses that point right there and moves up north of the ecliptic. This is where the North Node is at. 2 weeks later, moon crosses the ecliptic going south of it, and this is the point where the South Node is. Now, the nodal axis moves around that circle backwards. It precesses, and it makes a complete cycle around that ecliptic or the zodiac every 18.6 years. And the fact that it precesses or moves backwards signifies a return to universal source on solar lunar levels. Now this retrograde axis, the node's retrograde axis, it's retrograde 90% of the time. It's direct approximately 10% of the time. So 90% of us are born with the node's retrograde. And what that signifies on a interpretive or psychological level is that most of us, there's going to be a stronger sense of destiny early on in life. If you are born with the nodes direct, 10% of the time, there's a sense of destiny that comes later in life. Now, I happen to have been born with the nodes direct, and I can agree with this observation correlation in evolutionary astrology. I was very traditional in my upbringing and my world, and it has been in my experienced years that I really got a handle on breaking free and finding my way and becoming an astrologer. The nodal axis transit through each sign of the zodiac is approximately 18 months, and if you're interested, the daily mean motion is 3 minutes of arc. There are 60 minutes in a degree, there are 30 degrees in a sign, 360 degrees in the circle. The South Node is the soul's ego from the past. It is the accumulation of emotional residues from all past lives. The South Node represents security as it is what we know, especially from the past. It will also represent karma on many levels, the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, the accumulation of that karma with an emphasis on all of the emotional residue. It is a point of familiarity, both positive and negative. In other words, sometimes the South Node can be our gifts we bring through. Sometimes it can be what we call that Achilles heel, or that spot that always catches us and takes us down or has us repeating the past. It's also known as a point of stagnation. Now, the transiting South Node is always going to be the leading edge of healing and releasing the past on an egoic conscious level. The North Node is the leading edge of development of the soul's ego in this life. It represents insecurity as it is unknown or uncharted territory. It is our dharma. It is how we move forward into the future on a conscious egoic level. So it has about it almost a sense of destiny or a magnetic pull to move us forward. The North Node represents a point of movement versus that stagnation of the South Node. The transiting North Node is the leading edge of developing new egoic skills into the future on a conscious level. Now, the moon's nodes are always exactly opposite each other. The rest of the planetary nodes are not. And so what we have happen when we look at the nodal axis and both of them together, the past South Node and future North Node are always in tension in the present moment, and that present moment being represented by the moon and that conscious ego, that self-image as we call it in EA. And what happens between North Node, South Node on the nodal axis, the past is always trying to shape the future in the present moment. And by this we mean that the past is always trying to project itself forward into the future for security reasons. And all you have to do is look at your own South Node by sign, by house. Look at where you are secure and how you always move that forward. The joke for Leroy is that Kim Marie has a South Node in Taurus, and anytime I go somewhere, I don't only take the bathroom and the bedroom, but I take the kitchen sink as well. Taurus brings all its baggage, all its stuff with it. And Leroy's always challenging me, can I go for a hike without having to bring all my little security creature comforts along when we're only leaving the house for 3 hours? So that, again, South Node's always projecting past forward. And it really takes effort to release it, to let go of what we no longer need. And therefore, that again, that retrograde motion of the nodes means that we are progressively leaving the past behind and making the effort to move forward. Now, the nodal transits compared to our natal nodes. The nodal axis, North Node, South Node, conjuncts the natal north node, south node, again, approximately every 19 years. You see these as ages 19, 37, 38, 56, 57, 75, 76. You see that on the screen. When we have a nodal axis return, there's a completion and rebirth of the nodal lessons and intentions. We also have the nodes oppose each other halfway between all of that. And so this happens at approximately ages 9, 28, 47, 66, give or take a year or a few months. And when we have the nodal opposition to the natal nodes, this is where we can gain some objectivity, objectivity, to release the past and make leaps moving forward. When the nodal axis is square the natal nodes, these are those famous squares of tension, frustration, feeling squeezed between a rock and a hard spot, and feeling pressure to change, move, evolve. Any of these can, though, represent time periods when we can get stuck and repeat or re-imprint patterns and lessons, or, as it shows above, make the efforts to evolve and grow. Now, when we are looking at the transiting nodes, they will show what are the surface or apparent issues and lessons by the sign and the house that the nodes are transiting through. And it is the rulers of the transiting signs that the node moves through that show the deeper or actual issues and lessons that we are undertaking. So, for instance, the deeper lessons relating back to the natal chart with the North Node in Virgo, it's going to relate to the ruler Mercury, and wherever it is in your chart by natal house, sign, aspects, and you can include the rulers of the house and sign. And the South Node in Pisces is going to relate to the ruler Neptune, and wherever it is in your chart by natal sign, house, aspects, including rulers. So the ego, the conscious part of our soul, is releasing through Neptune, representing the past here, and developing through Mercury into the future. So here's a little visual of it. We know again, North Node is in Virgo, ruler Mercury. This is where you're going to look in your natal chart for the deeper issues. South Node transiting through Pisces, ruler Neptune. This is where you're going to look for the deeper issues of what you need to resolve. So here, oh, no, first of all, I thought I had my chart example next, but, oh, I do. I thought I did make that switch. So right here is an example for you, Donald Trump's chart, June 14th, 46, 10:54 a.m. in Queens, New York. And if you look at right here, he has Leo rising 29 degrees. He has second house cusp 28 degrees Virgo. So that transiting node is moving right here in the second house, getting ready to shift to the first. South node is finishing up the 8th house, getting ready to shift into the 7th. If you would just observe Donald Trump in the news, looking at the coming off of this transit in Aries 8th house, look at me and my money, and Libra 2nd house, I represent so much security and an ability to make myself known out there. It's kind of been a little magnetism, Libra 2nd house going on here. As the nodes shift, you're going to see the South node starting to have to deal with more relationship issues, perhaps some disillusionment with relationships, perhaps some out of touch with reality with relationships. North Node, first house in Virgo, he might start getting criticisms about himself. He might start criticizing others and build himself up here. However, the deeper issues of what's going to go on for him are the rulers. North Node ruler Mercury here, 9 degrees, Cancer, 11th house. South Node ruler Neptune, 6 degrees, Libra, 2nd house. So here's these surface issues that he's having to deal with, which is, again, disillusionment over relationships. Why is America falling out of love with me? How can anybody else be rising in the polls more than me? And the deeper issue here is security issues tied to people seeing the Donald as completely successful, seeing him as a demigod. You know, listen to the words that he puts out. I'm the only one who can do this, and I can make America great again. Look at how he projects himself out there as this demigod with all of his money, and he can show everybody else how to do it. As this South Node transits through here, he's going to have some awakenings in this area. He may have to use more of his resources. It may be that no matter how much money, second house, he tries to throw at us, he's not in touch, Neptune, with who he really is and how people really see him. The North Node here, Mercury here ruling this North Node, the deeper issue has to do with a lot of communication stuff. And look at how the ruler of the nodes is in a last quarter square. Mercury is 3/4 of the way around the chart from Neptune. It's past 270, last quarter square, crises in consciousness. Wait for him to proclaim that nobody understands him and his feelings are hurt. Wait for him to get emotional and start to lash out. And this is going to fall back into deeper patterning within this soul. And if I have some of my just little tidbits that I've heard in the news here, we have a Pisces soul who needs, who will see me. These are souls that can be out of touch. And yet in Leo, how much attention do I have to go into drama, trauma in order to be acknowledged? And here's the rising. When he rose in popularity, here was transiting Saturn, by the way, earlier this year, this summer. But this Mercury right here, the evolution for him is to learn some mental objectivity and really recognize that he's feeling hurt and lashing out, and his lashing out is also hurting others. There's emotional insecurity here. Will he emotionally evolve, Mercury in Cancer, through this? Will he move for some more deeper levels of being able to objectively look at his behaviors and statements? Or will he cry wounded warrior here and nobody understands me and I'm just going to take my money and go play in my own sandbox again? You get the point. We're not going to go into a deep a deep evaluation of this chart. I just wanted to bring out a few examples of how wherever you see the transiting nodes by sign and house, you're going to look deeper into any chart for where they're trying to heal and resolve the past, Neptune, and where they are trying to evolve forward emotionally, Mercury. Now, let's have just a little bit of review here. Having said this, think about this for a while because you can look at your own charts. You can ponder your own life. We are finishing up the nodal axis through Libra Aries from February 19th, 2014 through November 11th, 2015. Here we were looking at Mars for some of the deeper issues that we were having to release and evolve egoically. Here we were looking at Venus as ruler of the North Node in Libra for how we were striving to evolve forward. And so you want to look where natal Mars-Venus is in your chart. This is where you're finishing up that egoic evolution of releasing the past and moving forward into the future. You can take it one step further. You can look at where your phasal relationship of natal Venus-Mars is. House sign aspects, that's going to tell you how you've been going about the whole issue of values and achieving them, giving and receiving in love. These are where we're looking at the deepest issues and lessons we've worked with in the last 18 months on a conscious egoic level, where we've been having to learn how to meet our own needs, Mars, through relationships, Venus, and observe others doing the same. So you can reflect on how this is going to have an effect. It's going to be a shift with Mercury, Neptune. It's going to be left brain, whole brain. It's going to be information and understanding it. Just a little more review. This Libra Aries nodal axis, we've been having to release all of the old fears within ourselves that have us so defensive over the last year and a half and moving forward into new relationship patterns. If we've been on the selfish end, we're going to have to learn how to give. If we've been on the selfless end, we've been learning how to receive and or stand up for ourselves. We've also been letting go of old desires that no longer serve our soul. We've been learning to trust our own instinct, Mars, again, making decisions. We've been learning how to balance ourselves with others and achieving freedom through relationships. So you can reflect on how this has operated in your chart over the last year and a half. Now we're going to shift into new egoic lessons. Again, here's what we're looking at. South Node Pisces, ruler Neptune. North Node Virgo, ruler Mercury. Basically, ultimate freedom means ultimate responsibility. Neptune, Neptune Pisces 12th house being an archetype that can so much signify entrapment, traditional astrology, jail, getting locked up, getting enslaved and trapped, not being free. Well, Pisces 12th house contains all 11 signs that came before it. So you've really got to dig deep to recognize that you're ultimately responsible for everything in your world, consciously, unconsciously. And if you really want to be free, you've got to accept that ultimate responsibility. Flip it over to Virgo, North Node, ruler Mercury. This is self-responsibility here. And making that effort, Mercury, on a mental basis. And as we make that mental effort to put it into action, to put it into practice, Virgo being an earth sign. So while this is one of my favorite quotes for Pisces 12th house and Neptune, I think it works quite well for the polarity as well. More on this a little bit later. Let's look at the South Node first. Let's look at what we are trying to release. On the broadest level, a Pisces South Node is surrendering any barrier, anyone or anything that prevents us from merging with Universal Source. It means we have to let go of the old desires no longer serving our soul or ego. And this will also include desires that are not achievable on our personal egoic will only. It means that we have to release fantasies and illusions that are not in touch with Virgo reality. In other words, do we have desires or fantasies or dreams that are not achievable in this space-time or in the form of this lifetime? Not all of us are going to be CEOs of a bank. Not all of us are going to win the lottery. So we have to let go of those illusions or old desires that do not serve us. And what it brings up is fear. Because when the soul manifests and brings forth an ego, the ego is what's in charge or thinks it's in charge, and it tries to control everything on a conscious level. And to really surrender to source energy has us bringing up all kinds of egoic fears. We're going to lose everything. We're going to lose control. We're going to lose the ones we love. We're going to lose this. We're going to lose that. The mechanism then in which this typically happens is South Node Pisces. We're going to go through cycles of disappointments, letdowns, all the famous Piscean words, depression, reality checks, confusion, alienation, disassociation, imprisonment of all types, whether we literally get locked up behind bars or we feel imprisoned in the nature of our world. And so all of us through transiting South Node in Pisces, the specifics will be in that transiting house. But it will still then be triggered back to your natal Neptune. And you can include wherever transiting Neptune is. And of course, transiting Neptune could very easily be in the same house as the South Node. As Neptune's transiting Pisces, it'll have a conjunction with the South Node one time, like about a little less than a year from now, next fall. We'll look at more on that a little later on. So we have to also recognize and release any substitutes for source energy, God, Goddess, Great Spirit, whatever your words. Then, of course, what are the substitutes? All separating desires of any sort on an ultimate level. The lover, the job, the material goods and resources, the house, the car, the vacation, the whatever it is that we are projecting our ideals onto to substitute for source. Now, does it mean South Node in Pisces we're going to lose everything literally? No. But each of us individually will be called to recognize where we are substituting a relationship with source with one of these separating desires. And somehow, some way, we're going to have to develop that communion with God, Goddess, and accept no substitutes. If we're unwilling to do that, there's denial, there's checking out, there is escapism through addiction and substances. And therefore, what comes along is the confusion, the depression, because that stuff that we're trying to cling to won't serve us anymore. Now, if you are part of that Neptune and Libra generation natally, there might be an emphasis on the de facto God Goddess projected onto the lover. If you have Neptune natally in Scorpio, there's going to be a lot of projection onto your resources really giving you security, and you might be asked to release them. Neptune in Sag, younger ones, you're going to have projections where you think you know it all. And you're going to find out there's a relativity to truth, Gemini polarity. The Neptune in Virgos, a little bit older, you are really going to have to look at where a lot of the religious projections have torn you down. And there's really a lot of objectivity to come in that area. We'll look at this in a couple slides as well. So there's a Virgo lesson here as well, though. I want to just skip over to this North Node. To utilize the exhaustion of these separating desires as a path to align personal will with universal will. In other words, if we could do like Religious distortion says, and pray ourselves perfect, we'd all snap our fingers and we'd be in instant nirvana with source energy. We must go through in natural law the exhaustion of these separating desires. So we take that separating desire and we use it as a tool to know source. While we are working to improve our health, while we are working to accumulate the resources. We see this as work to align with source. And when we practice I will, my will, divine will, we may find that the separating desires change. We may find that our work and service to others change. Pisces-Virgo brings up that concept of karma yoga. What is my path to serve? Typically through work, but not always. And just asking that question, how am I to be of service to myself and to others and to God Goddess? Just ask that question inwardly. How do I serve? 3 questions. How do I serve myself? How do I serve others? And how do I serve Source? Ask it open-mindedly through this nodal transit, and your own soul will release up into the ego's consciousness the past to align with, to naturally exhaust separating desires, and to naturally realign the returning desire to source, step by step. Pisces South Node also means that we're going to have to look at all the sadomasochistic patterns we have, and there is a gazillion of them. And they can either be re-imprinted or they can be released to some degree or some level. Basically, human religions and their patriarchal distortions have been conditioning our beliefs for the last 7,000-8,000 years. And there's really been an imprinting of that over the last 2,000 years of the Piscean age. As we move to the end of this, we can then work to be releasing this wounding of the Piscean age. This is an emphasis over the next 18 months with this nodal axis transit. Basically, these conditioned beliefs have taught us God is a white male, he is outside of us, and God is perfect. You see the parentheses. Why would something perfect create this mess? It flies in the face of Virgonian logic. Yet it operates on unconscious levels today for almost all of us to some degree or another. In natural law, observe, correlate, universal sources beyond gender. It's in us, out of us, it's everywhere. We know it outwardly to the degree we know it inwardly, directly. And the biggie, universal source is an evolving force. And so this nodal transit is bringing us an opportunity to reconnect with this understanding on some of the deepest levels possible. And wherever natal Neptune is in your chart, this is where it's going to be happening for you directly on some of the deepest levels over the next 18 months. Transiting Neptune will add into that picture. Now, our human awareness of our imperfections has been distorted into this conditioned guilt, and it basically operates 2 different ways. Guilt linked to atonement is the victim or masochist. I have to suffer. I have to make amends. I have to sabotage if I don't feel that I'm worthy of. Guilt linked to anger is the victor and the sadist. I have to get them before they get me. Sadomasochism, remember, it exists on both the Virgo and Pisces end of the polarity, meaning Virgo can be the masochist and or the sadist and interchange it in the same soul ego. Pisces can be the masochist or the sadist, and it can interchange as well within the same person. So the nodal axis transit here is bringing into conscious awareness these deep, deep, unconscious, conditioned guilt patterns. old teachings of Jeffrey Wolf Green, he used to feel that somewhere between 80 to 85% of guilt feelings on planet Earth were conditioned guilt versus 15 to 20% being natural guilt. That's the distortion of sadomasochism via human-made religions and conditionings. So, we, through this sadomasochism, we're either going to re-imprint or release these old cycles of victimization and powerlessness. And if we're on this victim masochist powerless end, we have to recognize that we are co-creators in our reality, consciously and unconsciously. Everything in our world has been co-created by us and Source and our interactions. So we must go about learning how to create and honor healthy boundaries. The victim goes to the selfless extremes. The victor goes to the selfish extremes. We have to release those, whatever side we're on. The victimization side, again, has to stand up and empower itself. This reminds me of the Ho'oponopono prayer, the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. I basically reduced it down to 4 steps. You can do it inwardly with self. You can do it outwardly with anyone you feel you have unfinished karma with. Anything you feel you have unfinished karma with. You can do it on broad collective scales with all of the woundedness you see, collective levels on planet Earth. Step 1, I love you. And if that's too uncomfortable to say, Step 1, I care about you. Step 2, I am sorry for XYZ. And this prayer comes from the premise, it doesn't matter who's responsible, it doesn't matter what the details or what the situation is, you have been part of co-creating it on planet Earth. So I am sorry for XYZ. Step 3, please forgive me. Step 4, I forgive you. I love you. I am sorry for XYZ. Please forgive me. I forgive you. And you say it till you come to inner peace. You say it until you have an ability to stand up where you need to. And this is based upon recognizing that as we evolve, as we take responsibility for any victimization or sense of powerlessness, our evolution means source energy evolves, the evolving force. Because again, on the ultimate levels, there is no victimization. And so this can be one of the ways in which we work to expand conscious awareness of our co-creation in the world and work towards I will, my will, divine will. That mantra alone will give you the courage to stand up when you need to, sincerely practicing it. Think about it. Do you really think that source energy thinks that it's okay to kill somebody else or hurt somebody else? No. Another little phrase of mine I didn't get in here. Your freedom ends at my nose. Your freedom ends at my nose. In other words, we do have freedom in the world, but we don't need some book to tell us that we don't get anywhere when we just hurt each other. I think Leroy gets a little tired of me because, I watch what goes on collective levels in the news, and one of my favorite sayings is, we can't bomb our way to peace. And he responded tonight and says, well, I don't know if the U.S. wants peace. You're right. I don't know if the consensus wants it either. But that doesn't mean we have to buy into it. We can be a part of learning how to love one another. Now, the victorization side, we also have to be careful of re-imprinting and hopefully releasing old cycles of being the sadist, the victor, or power over. So here we're going to address unconscious anger issues. Now the anger will exist on both sides, victimization and victorization. But there will be unconscious anger issues here that have us wanting to get back, because it's easier to get back than look at our roles. This is where we can work to heal any natural guilt complexes. And it has to start with self-forgiveness. This is also where we might work to let go of any addiction issues, substitutes of addiction. And by the way, addiction is not just physical, drugs and alcohol. It's emotional, mental, and spiritual as well. It operates on all 4 levels. Emotional addictions is being so codependent, you're addicted to another soul. Mental addictions, there can be endless. You've got to, manipulate and lie and control another person in order to feel on top and feel secure. Again, not wanting to look at yourself. Spiritual addictions, there are those who are in the metaphysical world who sometimes operate in their little spiritual ivory towers. And when they do that, they're no better than the consensus fundamentalist. We can become addicted to living in our ivory tower and wanting nothing to do with the Virgo polarity of service out there on a consensus level. Spirituated holds individuated and consensus within its arms. Do you follow that through? So here's where we really, on the power over end of the spectrum, are needing to release that and learn how to be again of service to another person, to another group, to the planet, etc. With the South Node, we're going to have our dream cycles magnified, and we can also utilize those dream cycles to make the unconscious conscious and work to heal the past. Jeffrey Green used to say that the dream cycles went in a lunar cycle, month to month. I don't remember whether it was so much new moon to new moon in the sky, or your own, transiting moon, conjunct natal new moon. I don't think that it's not so much the detail of that. It's just charting the cycling of the dream world over time. There are basically 3 types of dreams. Most of our dreams, by far vast majority, junk dreams. This is where we have to release the excess thoughts that we're bombarded with, the excess experiences we're bombarded with in this modern world of ours. Leroy and I realize that if we watch too much TV at night of any sort, it goes into our dream world. And that's where we work it out. That's where we make sense. That's where we release it. Past life dreams, of course, it's literally taking past life experiences and making them conscious to then hopefully use some therapeutic tools to resolve the imprints or wounds so that we don't continue to repeat that past. Jeffrey used to say that when you have a past life dream, it will feel like you're waking up coming out of a long, long tunnel, and you're very disorientated, and it takes you a while to recognize that you are in current life. He used to say the dreams tended to be black and white, but I know people who dream past lives in Technicolor. So no absolutes there. And the third type of dreams are superconscious dreams. We tap into the Akashic records. We tap into larger cycles of consciousness, unconsciousness on a collective level, and we're tapping into that via the past, present, or future. Future would be the Nostradamus type with the visions and the dreams. Past would be tapping into those Akashic records, not only for ourselves, but on, again, collective levels or groups. And then, depending on what we tap into, heal the past, evolve the present, work to change the future. So you may want to pay attention to the dream world as you are going through this next 18 months. Some of the distortions that we might see with this nodal axis transit, South Node Pisces, is issues around insanity and schizophrenia and, a lot of the mental health diseases might be emphasized. Souls that are extremely depressed, have no egoic structures, can be susceptible to possessions of some type. We can go the opposite of that and have inflated egoic structures and have somebody think they're the next Jesus. We can have all kinds of disassociations, the multiple personalities, the hearing voices, all of the extremes to the psyche that can go on via experiences of the past. These can come up again. If they do come up again, they're needing to be healed. We will find this in the news over the next year or two, and perhaps we might start doing something in the United States about the mental health issues that we have with so many of our wounded souls. Back in, what was it, the 70s, I think it was, 60s or 70s, we started to let go of funding for, the federal government let go of it and turned it over to the states. And all of a sudden, huge masses of people that should be in those institutions to help them are out on the streets and getting arrested for crimes. So expect more of this. How will we address it collectively? Each country will be different. We also, though, will have an opportunity, and especially those of you who, listen in on this type of a class, there's going to be an ability as we release our own disillusions and our own exhausted desires. There's going to be an opportunity to have reconnection to source, the next level, the next degree, the next step. And as we do that, we can see our own psychic energies and abilities opening up. We probably may have one or two psychics that will have a fall from grace if they're abusing that. But for most of us on a simple practical level, we have an opportunity to have an expansion of intuitive psychic abilities. We also need to make the conscious effort to replace the fear of the unknown with trust in Source. I will, my will, divine will. I will, my will, divine will. Show me the truth. Show me the truth. All beings of light returning to Source, be here now. You can make your mantras up however they work for you to help you. Again, release your own egoic fears of the unknown and make those step-by-step efforts to consciously know Source and walk with and co-create with Source. In other words, there's opportunity here to really deepen a direct relationship with Source energy. May you be successful. Now, if I covered everything, if I don't cover some little detail or archetype, you're always willing to raise your hand. Leroy, I see it. We can unmute your line. You can ask a question. You can also type into the chat area, Q&A area with Leroy, and he'll either ask me your question or address it for you. Both ways. I'm going to move on to the Virgo North Node so we can get through our material. Going to take a drink here just a moment. Virgo North Node. I ran across this and I just had to use it. Our main purpose in life is to help others. And if you can't help them, or you won't help them, at least do not hurt them. I thought this was beautiful, and you can just see the helping hands and all of the Virgo Pisces words in the hands, not to mention probably all 12 archetypes in regards to the words going on here. But I thought that it was just a very excellent example of what all of us have the potential to do with the North Node in Virgo. We are all needing to recognize the best path to honor and serve. Virgo is where we go from the ego of Leo and being the center of the universe to the equality of Libra and being fair and equal with others. So Virgo turns the egoic pyramid upside down, and we have to learn how to serve another one-on-one, how to serve groups, on the broadest level, how to serve source energy. That's what karma yoga is. The best vehicle relative to our natural capacities and aligning our will with divine will. And with Virgo, as an earth sign, we can also include discerning the best work vehicle relative to our natural capacities, relative to our karma from the past, to align our will with divine will. And when we make that effort to serve outside of ourselves, we gain personal knowledge. It is an avenue to purify ourselves. It is a natural way to self-humility, to self-realization, to devotion, seeing that spark of divine in the other. And it is a natural path for self-improvement. So as you look at your chart, your own chart, wherever the sign Virgo is by house or houses, that's where the transiting North Node is going to start consciously bringing up information and pulling you towards that to learn service, devotion, humility, helping others. And wherever Mercury is in your natal chart, by its own sign house aspects, that's where you're needing to really make a deep effort to utilize your conscious mind and apply it on an egoic, emotional level to doing better, becoming more, making that self-improvement effort again and again and again. Now, transiting Mercury will be a part of this picture as well over the next year and a half as it makes its fast transits through the signs. You could really practice some astrology on that one if you wanted to just focus on this slide and work your way with Mercury around the chart, bringing it back to natal Mercury and wherever Virgo is. Heads up, we have 3 Mercury retrogrades. Well, we have more than 3 during this nodal axis transit, but I think 3 of the 4 or 5 Mercury retrogrades are going to make trines to the North Node in Virgo, sextiles to the South Node in Pisces. So any mercurial, mental, daily efforts you make, Mercury's going to be there through this nodal transit to really help you make leaps forward. Typically, the Mercury rulership of Virgo and the 6th house brings issues to a crisis, brings them to a head. And the intent of that is to create change, to do something different, to affect evolution, to evolve, to grow. And that's where we really want to be using Mercury over the next year and a half to just find that mental courage to move ourselves forward step by step, day by day, on a continuous basis. Any of you Pluto and Virgos know this situation where you get into overwhelm. I've got Pluto Virgo at 2 degrees, and so what I've taught myself with the Virgo overwhelm is if I can't get the whole project done, can I make 5 steps forward with it? If I can't get to what I want to do today, is there something else I can get done that still makes me feel like I'm moving forward? That the process of movement with Virgo allows assimilation. It allows for understanding. It allows for evolution. Now, we talked about being able to serve another outside of ourselves and serve the group, but the Virgo North Node also means we must learn to serve ourselves. We're of no help to anybody else if we're not helping ourselves first. So the Virgo North Node is going to bring some emphasis to honoring the body temple, which is the temple of the soul. And of course, this is going to bring up the whole area of diet, exercise, and rest. Expect this to be in the news. Expect the outrageous pricing of drugs to be in the news as well. You already see that starting to come along. Expect here in the U.S. the whole, Affordable Health Care Act. That will be part of it. But we'll also see a lot of things open up in the alternative healing world with nutrition, with exercise, with different areas. And so on the broadest areas possible, where is this becoming active for you? And how does your natal Mercury show where you need to self-improve the effort? Mercury in a water sign or water house won't feel like exercising if they are emotionally bummed out. Can you make the effort to move through those emotions and exercise in some little way to get the endorphins going to process to move through the emotional stuck points? If you have Mercury in, you get the example that I just used. You start to look at your own natal Mercury through the elements, through the modalities, and make the mercurial effort. I don't feel like exercising, but I had plenty of sleep last night, so I need some oxygen. Some of us are in a wheelchair. We can't exercise, but that does not mean we cannot exercise the mind. Look at how we go about in our stressed out westernized world and we do not get enough rest. Can you make improvements week by week, month by month in that area so that a year and a half from now, as the nodal axis transit finishes up, you get a half hour more sleep or an hour or 2 hours more sleep, whatever it may be? It's going to be about making the daily efforts to self-improve. It's going to be about keeping yourself in motion, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, the ego moving forward in whatever ways those are. Sometimes it's going to be that mercurial effort to just meditate or quiet the mind on a daily basis. Roy and I've had conversations, instead of by the end of the day being tired and wanting to watch TV, maybe we need to make a better effort to read self-help books, spiritual books, and put ourselves into dream world from that perspective. We need to make effort, moment by moment, day by day, to have the conversations with Source Energy, God Goddess. Read Neale Donald Walsh's books again. Read whatever books you feel drawn to spiritually improve. Listen to self-help or spiritual tapes, CDs in the vehicle while you're driving. You want to make an effort to learn new practical and mental techniques to create change. And maybe you already have some good ones and they slacked off. Make the effort to redo them or expand upon them again. In other words, that South Node in Pisces can just get into so much float energy or denial, and the North Node in Virgo says step by step, movement by movement, move forward, no matter how tiny the baby step is. If you are not making that effort to move forward, what you will run into is reality shocks in some type of way. And if you run into reality shocks, then they are somehow, some way, necessary experiences to realign yourself with whatever your personal path of evolution is. And of course, we also will want to be recognizing all of those good old avoidance patterns and activities that we can get into with Virgo. You see a few examples here: overeating, watching too much TV, overdoing the drugs and alcohol, being the couch potato, excuse making. You all know most of those Virgo words. As you see yourself with those, can you make the process to move forward? Lou Roy and I have been in our house Jupiter cycle last year. We're going to reach year number 13. A year ago, I decided that I needed to start cleaning out drawers and closets, and I did really good this last winter. I don't do so well in the summer because I love to garden. But as it's been getting a little colder, I'm coming in and I cleaned out one drawer in the kitchen this last week, and I had to tell Leroy about it. Hey, honey, look at this drawer. I cleaned out my garden shed last week. So I take those little itty bitty cleaning projects to just throw away the junk that we accumulate in this westernized world. I'm still working on the office. I've made leaps and bounds in the last year or two, and my goal is through this nodal axis transit to really get a lot of paperwork shredded and released and digitized as we move through this nodal transit. That's one of my own self-improvement efforts I want to make with work, so that I feel cleaner, so that I can find things easier. You all know that world, perhaps, or some of you do, perhaps. There probably are a few Virgo neat freaks that maybe need to live with a little dust once in a while. It's not my issue. You get my point here. Just making the self-improvement efforts baby step by baby step, and pretty soon the molehill is a mountain climbed. We have to learn discrimination lessons on all levels: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. This is one of the lessons of Virgo. Pisces too, both of them. When we get into the powerlessness side of it, the victimization side, we can give up. And we have to have the ability to say, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not fair. I'm not going to allow this person to treat me this way. I'm not, going to engage in this type of behavior, going overboard with some food or substance? Can you discriminate? Can you hold that healthy boundary? Whatever it is, whatever the issues are, the masochist has to stand up for themselves, and the sadist has to learn to give or release or atone their turn. We're definitely going to have to look at addressing work inequalities all over the place. Look at the extremes that we see in CEO pay compared to the average worker pay. As I was prepping for class, I should have put this little graph in, but it looked at all of the major industrialized countries, and it gave the average ratios of the top 20% of the citizens to the bottom 20% of the citizens. The lowest ratio was Japan. It was 3-2. The highest ratio of the top 20% to the lower 20% was the United States, and it was 8.5, meaning the top 20% of our citizens or per capita make 8.5 times as much as the lowest 20%. These issues will come up. Where are your Virgo efforts going to be in whatever country you live in to work towards better work environments? I was reading an article about Apple, the Steve Jobs one, the movie that's out. This wasn't a review. It was an article pointing out that in the last quarter, and I don't remember which quarter, who knows if it was the second quarter or first quarter 2015, I don't know. Apple made $17 billion profit in 3 months. $17 billion in 3 months profit. And this article was pointing out exactly how extreme the work environments were in areas of China where they make the Apple Watch and the iPhone, and the suicide rates, and how all of Apple's promises to pay have went nowhere. Apple pays less than 2% of its profit as income tax. Those are extreme ratios that will be in the news. Let's see where the masses go. Pluto Cap, polarity, Cancer community, masses. Let's see if anything changes with this nodal axis transit. Of course, we all know the whole gender pay issue. Hillary's been making news on that one. I follow the consensus world because I look for evolution on the consensus level. And that's where I energize it and empower it, because when we pick up the least of us, we all evolve. So, I saw a great quote, equal education, unequal pay. And honoring all of the health and wellness priorities in order to be fully productive. Again, were plants in China where they literally shipped workers, didn't have enough rooms, made them sleep in buses, work 12-hour days in no heat just to meet the iPhone deadlines. Looking at how here in the U.S. we have all of these stresses in the work environment. We are the only country, the United States, in the modern or industrialized world that does not have a single payer healthcare system. And there's a National Geographic article. I'd like to see it updated. I don't know if they've updated it lately, but back in 2010, the United States paid 3 times as much for healthcare costs for about 80% of the health that we compared to other industrialized countries. So, we can either go into the South Node denial, give up, powerlessness, what's the use? Or we can go towards that North Node effort. Let's see how this works out with the masses and wherever you are in your world and whatever you need. I mean, there's no excuses for not taking care of your own body temple. But there also then is collective responsibilities as well and collective efforts that need to be made. We have to evolve judgments. And the first thing that we have to do is learn self-forgiveness around all of the ways we judge ourselves. And basically one of the things that EA teaches is we have to discern the difference between our inner intentions versus judging the outer result. You want to release weight and you have every intention to eat better, and yet you don't make the goals, so you judge yourself. You are going to save so much money and you have the best of intentions, and yet the car breaks down, so you don't make the goals and you judge yourself. So it's really the intention and the effort of self-improving that is what counts. And that needs to be the ultimate standard for any judgments. Face it, Virgo North Node. Do you know anybody perfect on planet Earth? You aren't here if you've achieved perfection. This is the path to perfection. This is the place where we make the effort and make the effort. With the Virgo North Node and the real impact on Mercury, the most important thing we can do is to try one more time than however many times we fall down. Tennis lesson, bicycle. Get up on that bike and try one more time, no matter how many times you fall down. Get up and try again, try again, try again, try again. There is no magical formula. It is the Virgo effort. And that's where Mercury can have an impact in your chart in being able to shift the self-talk, change the mental patterns, work your way through, have the conversation with someone, find your, companion or acquaintance or group that can be supportive in whatever your self-improvement goals are. Finally, Virgo North Node, gentle, unconditional self-love. I love me. How good are you at standing in the mirror, eyeball to eyeball? I love you. Our first love and last love is self-love. Eat like you love yourself, move like you love yourself, speak like you love yourself, act like you love yourself. Really, truly believe in yourself. When Virgo can get past all of that criticism and self-forgive and really honor and serve ourselves, when we can love ourselves, we can move mountains in where we want to go. Some of the more broader themes, religion versus spirituality, expect that to be in the news again, not like it ever goes away, ending of the Piscean age. We can see denial of all kinds of collective crises and inequalities that are going on, no matter what area of the planet we live on. We will see mental health issues again in the news. We might maybe see some steps forward or breakthroughs. We'll see work and career issues, hopefully breakthroughs. We'll find all of the addiction issues that will be in the news and media. I did put climate change in here. Expect more from climate change as well. Um, will it evolve in our consciousness enough to make some of those Virgo efforts around it? Time will tell. It doesn't seem to be anything that we're really operating on too much, at least in the United States. Perhaps they are in other countries, but if it doesn't come to a more conscious head during this nodal transit, it definitely will be doing so before Neptune gets out of Pisces. Neptune, Pisces 12th house, rules the rawness of nature and the totality of consciousness, unconsciousness. Jeffrey Green used to say, if you could step outside of planet Earth into space and look back down on planet Earth, and you looked at humans and what we do to planet Earth, Gaia, as a living entity, would see us as cancer cells and try to throw us off. And that's what's happening with climate change events. That's what happens with, I think from my personal belief system, bacteria, virus, fungus, prions, a lot of all of that stuff, that's just part of Mama Nature's birth control. Who are we to think we can play God and our species is better than any other species? Can we go to that Virgo nodal axis and honor all species? And of course, the whole health and healing evolution. The medical crises that could come up. We could see Neptune rules the immune system. Virgo rules the nervous system. We could see crises around those areas. Who knows? It's possible there could be another, some type of disease crisis that goes on again. And how are we going to address it? On a personal level here in the U.S., we're seeing this in the news in the last month or so. Hedge funds buying up drugs and then exponentially increasing the prices to where nobody can buy them. So when the masses wake up, and the most recent thing that I saw is the price of a drug in the U.S. versus the price of the drug in many of your European countries with single-payer systems where the government acts as the buying entity. And so there is a lot around this that will be crises that need to be solved. There is a lot around this that can be breakthroughs that we see happening all around us in various ways. Leroy and I, 15 years, almost a nodal cycle. I have 3-4 more years and I'll have a nodal cycle in the world of my energetic balancing, which is where we take a photograph and impart 500,000 healing frequencies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's work I've been involved with, and it's something that I've participated in now for 15 years. And I thought by now everybody would recognize it and catch on. If you're interested, you can email me, or aimenergeticbalancing.com is my website. Ask for me if you go to the aimprogram.com. Our universal website, but there's so much alternative healing technology out there. We'll see explosions of some of that in conscious awareness over the next 18 months as well. Not all of the themes, but just a handful that I could think of. Anything that I'm not mentioning, you're welcome to ask me to address it. Here's a few key phrases I put together for this nodal axis: evolving our spiritual understandings and acting upon them, expanding our mental awareness and thinking, talking, speaking differently, reaching for emotional grounding and practicality. And of course, South Node Pisces moving to North Node Virgo, walking our talk. You can have all the spiritual wisdom in the world, but if you're not putting it into practice, it's not evolution. Recognizing that each baby step forward in our personal evolution helps and heals planet Earth, evolves universal source. Searching ways to serve with healthy boundaries. Judging less and discerning more. Now, here's my little cliche again. Ultimate freedom means ultimate responsibility. So hopefully you're gathering some ways in which you recognize this is going on for you. I just want to briefly go over a few aspects. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but the nodal axis in the outer planets, you might be aware that we have the spiritual T-square, as we're calling it, Jupiter, Virgo, Saturn, Sag, Chiron, Neptune, Pisces. Here's the outer planets and the hits they'll have with the nodal axis. I put these in chronological order. Chiron is going to have an opposition to the North Node. It's going to be on the South Node next March. You can see the degrees right here, 22 Pisces. Pluto will have a trine to the North Node, sextile South Node next summer. Jupiter conjuncts the North Node. Summer solstice next year, 16 Virgo. Saturn squares the nodes a year from now, October 2016, 12 Sag. Neptune has an opposition to the nodes, 9 degrees Pisces, November 2016. Here, I decided, one more slide and then I'll have it. Jupiter has the conjunction to the North Node. However, Jupiter's retrograde cycle next year will make 3 sesquisquadrates, or the North Node will make 3 sesquisquadrates to Jupiter, and the South Node will make 3 semi-squares to Jupiter. So this is as it, not sesquisquadrates, semi-squares. Let me repeat this. I had that wrong. North Node moves 45 degrees away from Jupiter backwards. North Node has a waxing semi-square to Jupiter 3 times. South Node has a waning sesquisquadrate to Jupiter. And so as Jupiter moves on into Libra and the North Node reverses itself through Virgo into Leo, we're going to have to make some efforts, waxing semi-square, we're going to have to make some efforts on what it is we need to be changing about ourselves to really find fairness and equality in relationships. Oh, I did paralysis. Here's some of the distortions that might go on. Again, that paralysis, inability to act, stuck in the Pisces checkout, in the Virgo crises mode. What we need to be doing is acting upon the expanding awareness, okay, semi-square, sesquisquadrate, of the efforts needed to make changes in our life. And there will be an emphasis on efforts we need to make in regard to relationships. Now, here's what I wanted to show you. I did an event chart for the summer solstice because this can really show you how that spiritual T-square is working. And guess what I found as I drew up the summer solstice chart? We have a grand cross with Mercury and Gemini in the picture. I use the 0-degree houses so you can relate to it in the natural zodiac. Summer solstice, June 20th, 4:34 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Here's the North Node just a few days before the conjunction with Jupiter in Virgo. Here's the South Node. You can see how so much of the time it's going to be sandwiched in between Chiron and Neptune. Saturn going to be squaring those nodes in the fall. And for a few days around the summer solstice, Mercury's going to come tie in a grand cross. Now, calling this the spiritual T-square, this right here, Virgo conjunct the North Node. Here are the intuitive self-improvement efforts we must make the effort to move towards, especially as we release into consciousness old patterns of powerlessness, victimization, denial, disenchantment, old wounds, things that we held as cherished beliefs, realizing they're not real. And squaring this is Saturn and Sag, searching for truth. Now, what we're going to have happen during this time period, Jupiter is going to make 3 waning squares to Saturn. There are old realities we're going to have to let go of. Saturn is 3 waning squares to Neptune. 2016, 2017, Saturn is 3 waning squares to Chiron. As we search for the truth, we've got to stand up for truth, and we've got to let go of the old reality denials. This is going to have all of us on personal and collective levels searching for what is the meaning of life. What do we value? Where do we want to put our efforts? How do we want to be a part of creating peace on earth? When we have this mutable grand cross activated, it's adaptability, it's change. What we have to be careful of with this South Node here, with Neptune and Pisces, is denying it, checking out, escaping. We could even make excuses over here, and that can be battling back and forth. And Saturn just wants to go off and climb the mountaintop or play and pretend like nothing's happening. Expect this mid-June time period to be very active in the news. This is where the religious scandals, the health scandals, the climate change, everything could be, coming on strong during that time period. And oh, by the way, it will also be the tail end of the Mars retrograde period. Mars is retrograde April through June, the end of June next year. Future class, stay tuned. And so stay tuned for, again, a lot of power struggles going on here as we're having to work through all of this energy. And what you might notice here as Mars gets going further back, a few days before that, Sun will be here making the yod to these two. So June of next year, expect it to be a highlighted time. So again, personally, show me the truth, show me the truth. Where do I need to make my next effort? I will, my will, divine will. How do I need to evolve, adapt, and change in my world? How do I need to be a part of making it happen on planet Earth? Here's the dates for you. There was only one Jupiter opposition to Neptune. Here's the 3 last quarter squares. Here's Jupiter's oppositions to Chiron. Here's Saturn squares to Neptune, Saturn squares to Chiron. So we have a good 2 years of this spiritual T-square, or the last quarter squares of Jupiter and Saturn to each other and Chiron and Neptune. It behooves deep philosophical questing, followed by an ability to change, however necessary. Briefly, Mars' retrograde doesn't make any aspects to the nodal axis. Here's its dates. Here's the degrees. And I put in conjunction to conjunction because, I just thought Mars runs in a 2-year cycle. So here's the harsh squares, oppositions to follow through on in regards to these. Probably the one to pay attention to is, well, here's the self-improvement efforts coming up right after the nodal axis moves in. Here's the opposition. How well are we making the efforts to act upon the changes we are discerning in our lives? Venus is quite active. Venus doesn't have any big aspects to the nodes. It's going to have, it'll have a retrograde cycle in here sometime. I don't remember exactly when. I think it might be later in 2017, but you can see here the conjunctions and oppositions. And this will be discerning our values. Mercury. Remember I said that Mercury has 3 out of 4 or 5 retrograde cycles. The next Mercury retrograde cycle coming up. Then we go a year later, and then followed by the spring of 2017. So the fact that, again, Mercury's the ruler of the North Node in Virgo. So that's going to be some of those deeper issues. The fact that Mercury has these nice trines in these retrograde cycles in Earth signs. Make the effort, make the effort, make the effort. Ease of effort, ease of reward is what we find with trines and sextiles. So there's some timing on those for you to refer to. Here's the inner planets. I just put together Sun, Mercury, Venus because they move so close. Here's their oppositions sitting on the South Node next March. This is where we could see some of our meltdowns. This is where we could find, some cherished ideals exposed. This is where we really want to make some efforts to commune with Source. Here's the conjunctions next August. As these are going on, this is where we really want to make effort, make effort, make effort. Step by step. And then we have another opposition here, early Pisces, before the nodes finishes up. So we're going to have 2 opportunities on the South nodes to really look at what it is we need to let go of. Where do we need the next reconnection with Source? And we have one nice opportunity to really be making some progress moving forward with our self-improvement efforts. Here's the aspects to the Sun, and this time I just did through Virgo. And again, nodes go backwards. So Sun, and I just do the hard aspects because we notice those a little more. Starts with the squares, oppositions, moves to the conjunctions, ends with another opposition. Now, to me, you can follow those, but what I really find so important with the nodal axis is the eclipses. So just briefly, eclipses occur when Earth, Sun, and Moon meet on that plane of the ecliptic. The Sun's 400 times larger than the Moon, but the Moon's 400 times closer to Earth than the Sun. That's why they appear to be the same in the sky. Now, isn't that magical? Solar eclipses occur on 18 degrees either side of the ecliptic nodal axis, where the nodal axis is traveling on the ecliptic, 36-degree band, and they're only visible along a 90-mile wide path. Lunar eclipses occur 13 degrees on either side of the nodal axis on the ecliptic, 26-degree band, and lunar eclipses are visible to an entire hemisphere, half the planet. Here's the visual. Here's a solar eclipse, all right? Sunlight coming through, here's the moon, here is the total eclipse. When it's moving, it'll have a path. Here's what, well, umbra, penumbra, I don't remember which one's beginning, which one's ending. But you can see how solar eclipse is just a small area, and it's usually visible as a path. Stay tuned, I'll show you another slide of that path. Here's lunar eclipses. Sunlight coming towards Earth. Earth blocks the moon. Here's the total lunar eclipse, and here is the partial lunar eclipses that we can see from half of planet Earth. Now, north node eclipse seasons, whether solar or lunar, are when the sun is on the north node. Emphasizes moving forward, developing the ego. North node eclipses are when the sun is in Virgo right now, or Leo, Virgo, Libra. South node eclipse season, sun is on the south node. Emphasizes reviewing the past, releasing old ego. There can be anywhere from 4 to 7 eclipses, both lunar and solar, annually. The next year to have 7 eclipses in a calendar year is 2038. Here's the eclipses next year. South node eclipses, sun traveling Pisces, Pisces, Aries. While the nodal axis would be in a certain polarity, Virgo, Aries, you can actually have sun and moon sign before sign of. North node eclipses will be late next summer. 3 of them, lunar, solar, lunar. South node eclipses. And I included these eclipses because I discovered, maybe some of you already know this, we have a total solar eclipse in August of 2017. The nodes will have moved into Leo Aquarius. It will be visible in the United States. Not only that, there's the path of the total solar eclipse in August of 2017. I live right here. I want to plan an astrology event, and Leroy and I are thinking somewhere along here, because you can get some clouds here, you can get some clouds here, but in August we can have some sunny weather, especially midday. And so stay tuned. But Yahoo, we get a solar eclipse. I've seen partial solar eclipses. Again, you cannot look at them right on. You have to look at them reflected or have special eclipse glasses in order to look. You can't look directly at the sun. But it isn't that often because the path, again, is only 90 miles wide. You don't get it very often. So I just had to leap forward and show you this total solar eclipse coming up here in a little less than 2 years. So finally, here's the slide that I already went through on some of the key phrases and intentions as we're looking at the nodal axis through Virgo Pisces. At this point, this is the end of my slides. I'd like to just see, do I have questions or comments from anybody on any issues or subjects that I did not cover?
Things are pretty quiet, Kim.
Yeah.
But we do have a question from Jay. I'll see. Jay, are you mic'd? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Okay. Oh, Jay's on the phone. I don't think he's mic'd. Why don't you go ahead and cue and Amy your question, Jay, and I'll ask him on behalf. Let's see if that works. There you go. There you go, Jay. Can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Great.
we
Go ahead and
can.
ask. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for a great lecture.
Thank you.
My question has to do with those of us that were born in the 60s and the late 50s that have Pluto in Virgo and Chiron in Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
and how this is going to affect us, while at the same time we're having our Neptune trines from Neptune in Scorpio to Neptune
Mm-hmm.
in Pisces.
Yes, and I'll expand that if I can, Jay. You move it into the 60s and you have the Pluto-Uranus conjunction in Virgo, and then you had the Saturn-Chiron oppositions in Pisces. And if you fine tune that even more, somewhere in 64, 65, you even had the nodes squaring from Sag Virgo, and I'm not remembering which one was which, and I will look that up very, very quickly. Basically, you're going to have, with that south node going over Saturn Chiron, there's going to be old realities that are just not going to be sustainable anymore. And it's going to behoove you to be careful not to, re-imprint the woundedness, re-imprint the victimizations. It's most possible that however the old realities are disintegrating, Saturn, Pisces, okay, South Node moving through Pisces, disintegrating old realities, Chiron wounding them, they're most likely going to be necessary in some way in order to help you evolve spiritually. If the realities are not sustainable, they don't support you. And at the same time, you're going to have the North Node in Virgo moving over Saturn, or excuse me, Uranus and Pluto. And that is where you can gather the strength of your soul to just bust out, break free. I mean, create new realities on all kinds of levels. I mean, the classic one is somebody who up to this point has life, home, family, work, career, everything's all structured, and it just, the wife comes and says, I can't do this anymore. Or the business gets sold, and all of a sudden the famous pink slip. In some ways, um, reality just has to shift and change. And the distortions and re-imprintings are to disintegrate into crisis mode, helplessness. I can't do this. And the North Node on Uranus and or Pluto is saying, oh, yes, you can. We're here to wake you up. We're here to help you recognize where you need to be making the change and effort. Now, if you go right into the mid-60s, that 64, 65 time period, that's where you had the South Node in Sag, and you had the North Node in Gemini, and you had these four planets, Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Pluto, squaring the nodes. That mini generation there in the mid-60s will really be feeling this kind of tension the most. And it's going to be unique to each person. Not everybody's going to lose their job or have their relationship break up. Because this is all happening again in the mutable quadrant, it is asking for change, adaptability, deeper understandings, making efforts. Again, I even though that south node on Chiron Pisces can be a little, undermining, the north node on Uranus and or Virgo can be quite empowering. Nobody can organize better than a Pluto in Virgo. And there may be something that just really has them making leaps of growth forward, internally, effort by effort, externally, effort by effort. And through it all, it's going to be asking for one-on-one direct communication with source energy, however you perceive it. Even if we have somebody who is in consensus state of awareness, 7 out of 10, cowbells around their neck, they can still be turning towards God as they know it and deepening their belief system. You know, part of what happens with this Pluto and Virgo generation is they're going through the disillusionment of beliefs at the ending of the Piscean age. And the Piscean polarity point lesson for the Pluto Virgos is to rebirth their belief systems. So here's the catalyst with the nodal axis transit. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very nice answer.
Thank you, Astro. Thank you, Astro J. Appreciate it. And Kim, I'm going to go ahead and put Sarah on as a relevant question. I'm going to unmute Sarah when I can find her in the list here. Here we go, Sarah. Go ahead. Ask your question of Kim.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sarah. Hi.
Hi, Kim, Marie. So I've got, my nodes are at 17 degrees, 12 minutes. So right now they're conjunct Jupiter and Chiron. So I'm also Pluto is in Virgo as well.
Sarah, what
So
you said your nodes are at 17 degrees, but North Node, South Node, I'm assuming Virgo Pisces.
Virgo Pisces, yes.
And
yes. North Node in Virgo.
Okay. And your question?
So how how is that? How are those conjunctions affecting that? And then the North Node is coming into Virgo. So I'm just should I be bracing myself?
It's going to depend on all kinds of factors, honey. All right. It's going to depend upon your approach, and being, when we. Sometimes I find in the world of astrology, when we look forward at aspects coming up, we can have a tendency to just go to the fear of the aspect rather than what's the opportunity. So that's where you can start to make that Virgo North Node conscious effort, okay? Classically, you're going to be having a nodal return. The transiting South Node is going to go over natal South Node, North Node over natal North Node. And the nodal return is death and rebirth of the egoic process. So you're going to revisit all the ways that your South Node can have a tendency to undermine or deny or avoid or check out. But that South Nodal transit return can also provide opportunities to reconnect with source energy deeper than you ever have before.
Mm-hmm.
It can bring out some intuition and psychic abilities, like we said before. The North Node return is going to have you on a classic level letting go of all of the Virgo cup half empty excuses, not good enough, not smart enough, self-doubt, all of those Virgo things. And you would want to be making the effort to go forward. However, you are getting the intuitive hits to do so. And all of this is happening on a conscious egoic level. That's the thing about the nodal axis. It's conscious.
Yeah, I feel like I've already been experiencing it for a little while.
You will resonate to it because it's your natal signature. You will feel like you're always experiencing it. And it's the natal signature. It's going to be emphasized now with the transit.
Okay.
And the rest of us feel like we're right there with you.
Well, I'm an expert.
There you go. There's that Virgo North Node. And transiting Jupiter, transiting Jupiter is going to go 3 times over that North Node, oppose that South Node. And, Jupiter's in its opposite sign. Well, not in its opposite sign. Jupiter is right brain, Virgo's left brain, or, and so, Jupiter is also acting as a catalyst to opening you up to believe in yourself, opening you up to do your work, whatever that is at this point. You got to be careful with Jupiter running into all kinds of excuses. And you just got to really put one foot in front of another.
Yeah, I can feel that. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, for your question. Nice of you to participate. Kim, we've got 5 minutes left, and for the rest of the hour, I just want to remind all of our participants tonight that we do have another upcoming webinar on November 16th, 6 to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time now. We're Mountain Standard Time, and that, of course, will be the first in our chakra series. We're going to cover the root chakra and survival issues. So I'll turn that over to you, Kim.
Thank you. I thought I would just do a revisit. This is basically material more or less from segment 3. And so I thought over the course of the winter, when the skies are dark and I'm inside more, I do a chakra series on the 7 chakras and their health and wellness rulerships according to the teachings of Evolutionary astrology, Jeffrey Wolf Green method. So you can see on your screen here, we're going to look at the root chakra, and in December we'll look at the sacral chakra. These will be public webinar classes that will be more chart driven. In other words, tonight's class has a lot of material and not so much charts. This is where we'll move through the material, and then we'll try to use some chart examples on how we look at the rulerships of the chakras via astrology. Anytime you see a class up here, they are always 6 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time, whether it is standard time or daylight time. You can see where I'm going to do my 2016 forecast just before New Year's Eve, and then come January, it will be time for another Mercury retrograde. Can you believe it? So there's the upcoming classes, and so I thank you all very much for tuning into this class, either live or catching the recording afterwards. And I just wish you all inner emotional peace through this nodal transit. Just make that effort day by day. I will, my will, divine will. What would you have me know and do? All the best, everyone. Good night.